I don't think anyone really knows me. Now, not in a dramatic way, not in this random way. I'm just saying it in general, right? This part of me that I don't show, right, to other people because let's be real. I'm I'm essentially two different people, right? People see me, they talk to me, but they don't they don't really know who I am outside of that, right? I mean, yeah, they might know me enough to where we get along, to where we make jokes, to where we laugh, but they don't know me to the point where I have a YouTube channel, right? I make videos on mental health because I've struggled with it and I don't want anyone else to struggle with, right? And so most days, right, I'm fine. I I get it through with my day. I get up, I go to school, I talk to people, I laugh, I socialize, and that's all I need, right? That's enough. But I think there's something underneath all of those contentments. I don't know if that's a word. Like the feeling of being content. I don't know. But there's something underneath that, right? And it's not really I could put into words because it's not like sadness or emptiness or depression or anything like that. It's more silent, right? It's almost like life is happening around me and I got removed, right? It's like I'm not even there. And so sometimes I feel like I have thoughts like that, right? They kind of sit there in my head. They don't go anywhere. They don't turn into any groundbreaking decisions, but they just kind of exist there, right? And these thoughts I don't feel like I'm really connected with people, right? I don't really know what my purpose is, or I think that time is moving faster than it needs to. Now, those statements that I just said, they're not necessarily a problem, right? If you have those thoughts, and they don't need advice to be solved. They just kind of sit there, right? And so, at least I think the longer you hold them inside, the more normal they sound, right? And the more normal they feel. It almost feels like everyday life, right? You just stop questioning them and you just continue on with your day, right? I mean, they're not going anywhere, right? They're not bothering you, so it's just existing, right? And so I was kind of thinking to myself, like, why do we hide these things, right? The matter of the matter of I don't know, maybe it's a matter of embarrassment, right? Because you can't really go up to someone and say, hey, I don't feel passionate about anything, or I feel almost disconnected from my own life, right? Because it wouldn't really make any sense to say that. And I think that when you do say things like that, it almost kind of hurts, right? Because I don't know. I'm sure that someone out there might know what I'm talking about, but at least to me, it just doesn't feel right. And I don't know. I don't. At least I live. Sorry. At least I don't think something's wrong with me. But I don't know. Maybe there is. Maybe there isn't. But there's also another overlying issue here. Not an underlying, an overlying. I don't really know what the difference is. I just want it to sound cool. But distraction, right? We're in 2026 now. There's so many ways to get distracted from really thinking about, these things. And so there comes a time where distraction starts to become comfortable, right? And it starts to become something that you're content with. And these distractions are anywhere from watching YouTube videos, right? Scrolling on TikTok or YouTube shorts, or playing video games, right? Anything that kind of keeps the thoughts from, almost being too loud, right? And it's not really because thinking about them is bad, right? I think that it's more because when those thoughts become loud enough to where you're basically consciously thinking about them all the time, it's hard to know what to really do with them, right? Because you don't really have an answer, and I don't either, right? And so there are some days where I'll be sitting in class, right? And some people just look different, right? Something feels off about someone else, right? And so that moment, right, where you're like, hey, something's not right, right? And then you talk to someone about it, right? And you say, hey, what's up with so and so? And they're like, I don't know, they look the exact same, right? And then you continue on with that day, right? And then you realize that, you kind of just sit down, but it doesn't really feel like you're sitting, right? Like when you're getting hit with a beam of sunlight and it almost feels like nothing matters, right? And I think it's in those days where it just reminds me that noticing life is a part of being alive, right? Like noticing those little things, those little habits that people have, noticing everything. It's just a part of you, right? And so, I don't know, right? Again, another big thing here is loneliness, right? Because don't get me wrong, right? I think that loneliness is not obvious, right? It is one of the hardest things to spot, even within yourself, right? Because loneliness is not about being alone, right? I mean, let's be real. You could be separate, you could be surrounded by hundreds of people and still you find a way to feel lonely, right? Now, before you start thinking like, hey, what's wrong with me, right? There's nothing wrong with you, right? There's nothing wrong with you. Also, I'm sorry if I stumble upon words. It's 2:30 a.m. and I just wanted to get something. Anyways, right? It kind of feels like everyone's operating. It almost feels like everyone's operating. It almost feels like everyone's operating at a different level than you are, right? You're just not there, right? And things like that are just so subtle and so easy to miss. And maybe that's why we avoid things, right? Because we try and avoid these thoughts not because we don't like thinking about them, right? But I think it's because thinking about them just ends up making us more overwhelmed, you know? And so, I don't know. That kind of reminds me, right? I remember last year, either November or December, I don't really know why. I was kind of alone, right? And I don't know why, right? I didn't know why. And I still don't know why, right? And I don't think I'll ever find out, quite frankly. But I remember, I think it was a night. I'm not sure when I made my first upload, but I remember just sitting there and I just wanted to record myself, right? I wasn't really recording myself to give advice. I wasn't really recording really for anyone to watch in general. Or I wasn't really recording to help people. Well, I was, but not entirely. But I think I was recording to kind of understand who I am, right? Just to say it out loud, right? Just to just to let the thoughts kind of exist somewhere else than inside of my head. And even even if it's messy, right? Or even if that situation repeats or it doesn't go anywhere, right? Even if that sense just constantly lingers over you, sometimes, at least in my opinion, just saying it out loud is enough, right? Just being able to come behind this microphone and to talk to you guys is enough for me, right? And I think there's a part of honesty that's uncomfortable, right? Because when you're speaking honestly, it it's real, right? It's coming straight from the heart, right? What you think. And that's also why I named this channel after honesty, right? Honest Onion. Of course, it's in the name. And I think there's another part that's kind of relieving about this channel, and that's because I don't have to hide this side of myself, right? Because you guys already know, right? And I don't really take shame in that. But I don't know, right? I don't know what this channel is gonna turn into. I don't really know where it's gonna go, but I think that's okay, right? Because I don't think I would ever have guessed that my video got 200 views back in 2025, right? I think there's no chance I would have thought that because, at least from my perspective, 20 views was massive. 20 views was a massive video for me. Oh man, I missed that. But, oh well, right. And I think that sometimes, right, there are there's some kind of contradictions in life, right? And I think in English literature we call this antithesis, right? It's kind of something that contrasts itself, right? I could be wrong with that, but that's just what I remember learning in my English class. And basically, what I mean by this is, you could feel so lonely and yet at the same time be surrounded by tons and tons of people, right? Or you could feel comforting and at home in a place of complete isolation, right? And there are also examples like you feel like you're moving forward, but you also feel like you're stuck, right? It's almost like the world is just continuously going while you're just standing still. And so You know, back then, I used to imagine what it would be like if I were to explain all of my thoughts into words, right? To someone who could truly listen, right? Because no one really listens nowadays, right? No one has the time, or, no one really cares now to sit down and to listen to your opinion, right? Even if it's a therapist, right? I think that therapists, they talk to so many people that even if it might seem like they care for you, which I'm sure they do, there's a portion of them that, you know, just kind of thinks like you're just another person that they're talking to, right? It's kind of second nature to them. So they're listening, but they're not really listening. You know what I mean? I'm sorry if that didn't make any sense. And so, people nod, right? Whenever you talk to them, people nod. They act like they act like they understand, right? But deep down, they don't get it, right? And I don't think anybody will. And so every day, right? There's always new stuff that I'm noticing, right? Whether it's things like whenever I put on my socks, right? That feeling of fabric stretching as I, try and pull my socks up. Or, I don't know, whenever I'm drinking, right? Or whenever I'm eating, right? However that feels. And it doesn't really solve much, right? It doesn't really do anything for me. But I like to think that it keeps me present, right? It kind of keeps me aware that life is happening, right? Even if it's happening quietly, it's still happening nonetheless, right? And so, if you're watching this video and you feel the same way, trust me, you're not alone, right? I just went on 17 minutes talking about this. Even if it doesn't feel like it, right? Even if you feel like you're alone in this, even when no one really says it out loud, I think that you're not alone, right? Because no one really knows who you are, right? But, I always was told that no one knows who I am, right? Because I don't want people to see that side of me. But I think this channel has let me speak more openly about myself. And I like to think that's a start, right? Sometimes you just have to notice in life, right? It doesn't have to be big. It could just be little things, right? From the texture of your blanket, right? Or the warmth of a nice hot cocoa. But I think it's just important to notice yourself existing in the world, right? Even if it might not feel important, even if nobody really notices, even if it is just the most random thing, it's still important. And so I am making this Minecraft therapy into a series. So if you guys appreciate this, please let me know down in the comments. I do have a plan for this, right? I'm pretty excited. This is season 1. And actually, I don't know if I'm going to do multiple seasons, but this is episode 1 of the first season. Might be the only season. And I'm sorry if the Minecraft gameplay you have already seen. I don't know what I'm going to put in the background because my Minecraft isn't working right now, so I might need to search through my files and find, just random things. But yeah, I think that the last episode in this series is going to make a lot of sense. But other than that, you know, I don't know, right? And if you guys like this video, please let me know down in the comments. And I think that's going to be it for me. It's now 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I need to get to bed. So, good night, guys. And yeah, peace out.